What's up, guys? So, Ryan Right Brain Design. I figured I'd update you guys on what's happening with the build. Um, First off, I want to start by saying I appreciate all the support recently with the exhaust work that Phil's been doing. You guys know that I plan my stuff out. So, if you look at engine layout or you look at something that I'm doing for car and tuning, I take the time to lay something out, to plan an entire project in phases before even starting the project. So Phil was amazing to work with. He still is amazing to work with. I'm so excited to see the car come to life because I couldn't have done it without him. And I said, Phil, let's try to put in this here and do this here, and we're gonna cram this thing this way. It's gonna go here, there, here, and man, that guy knocked it out of the park. So Phil, freaking thank you, dude. Uh, Beyond excited to hear, feel, drive the car. It's gonna be incredible. But as far as the design aspect, that was exactly what I envisioned and then exceeded when Phil put his own artistic approach on it. And that's the thing. I'm not sure if a lot of people realize the value of a fabricator. It's like, here's some raw freaking parts, right? And can you take your artistic approach, make this plan work, and then whatever finish it to both of our standards, right? And then you're going to run into things that are, you know, not agreeable, right? That's You're supposed to have these points in the automotive industry where you're butting heads like, oh, you want to compromise here? Okay. Oh, you want to change this here? Okay. Right? So material choice is a big thing. Layout is a big thing. Temperature control for, let's say, an exhaust, drive shaft, so on and so forth. Speaking of, that's a good point. Drive shafts for rotaries. If you have a drive shaft and you're within 4 to 6 inches of the exhaust system, the exhaust heat off of that drive shaft is going to debond or what ruin the bond of either a bonded aluminum or a bonded carbon fiber drive shaft. And those bonding uh, epoxies, they're 250-degree rated at most. So I highly suggest if that's something that you're going with, that has to be very far from the exhaust. Um, so I'm going to end up going with a Mark Williams chromoly 3 inch. So I could have gone 3 1/4, could have gone 3 1/2, but everything on the market that I'd been seeing would have been like PST, um, ACPT, I think was the other one in LA. All the kind of higher end exotic stuff. When you look at the brass tacks of it all, I was like, what is in the most exotic stuff you can think of? Mark Williams, hands down, every single time. So I'm gonna gain a little bit of weight, gonna gain a little bit of rotational mass, but a 3 inch chromoly will handle everything, which means my weak point is clutch, which I have right behind me. I seriously doubt the clutch is gonna fail, but the rear end itself, which is a Toyota 8 inch, Weird Performance is gonna be taking over where FFR left off, and we have eventually an OS Geekin, which I'm gonna drop in. If I have time to buy it, I will. That way I drop it off and say, here you go. Here's an OS Geekin clutch for your Toyota 8 inch, 456 final drive ratio, um, badass differential setup. And he's going to be setting up the pinion and the adjustment. It's a 1350 for the drive shaft that was machined out by this company in Utah, I believe, Utah or Colorado. And so instead of running the Toyota flange, which is a 60 by 60 round, it's converting that pinion flange to a 1350 U joint. 1350 U joint will come in both from Sonac's front and rear. D56 drops right in from I think it's the Ford 31 spline, whatever it is. But That drops in there. The so 1350s on both sides, nice and strong, and drive shaft is going to be taken care of. Cody Goldstrand's still handling all the wiring, so Cody was nice enough to say, "Hey, Ryan, it's expensive to go get a rental property in LA for like a month, um, trailer the car down, worry about like having a trailer stolen, stuff like that." He's like, "Why don't I just fly up or drive up?" He's 6, 7 hours away, 5 hours away if you're in no traffic. And he was like, "Why don't I just drive up? I'll template everything here at your place." Because again, I've got garage room. So he can template everything here and pretty much make it to where it's going to take a little longer because he's now got to template, measure, do all the things here, and then take it back home, build the template, and then I'll be here to take measurements if anything's changed. But we're going to have essentially Cody's wiring stuff without me having to take the car down to LA, down to Dan Burkett's shop or whoever could help out, which thank you guys again. That was amazing for reaching out. And I'm so excited to see more Formula Drift stuff. But anyways, the wiring is going to be taken care of. Cody is all on it. He knows exactly what he's doing. If there's ever someone to call a savant of wiring, that's Cody. Just above and beyond with his detail, his the way that he understands how to program for CAN bus stuff, for Mtron stuff, just and of course ECU master. He was the right choice for the job, and that seems to be the theme of the recent moves for the Rx7. So I've had Spool and Phil for fabrication, which is, thank you, Phil, freaking amazing work. Cody has been amazing to work with for, it's actually over a year now. We've been starting this, so just he goes out of his way every time, and it's greatly appreciated. So beyond that, we've got let's see. Oh, you've got John Swide. Um, John has gone through his own spec to make an unkillable motor, and it's a 13BT Series 5 base because I have an FC steering rack, an FC subframe, so it drops right in. John, along with Steve Eckrich of, actually, I don't know what we'd call his shop anymore, but so Steve and John kind of double teamed this plan here with me, as well as Chip Motorsport. And I think that the combination with what we set up is exactly what I needed. So I kind of told John what the plan was with the motor, and I'm like, John, I want to do this certain thing with the upper intake manifold flapper. I want to be closing off the semis when we're in cruise or when we're in vacuum at any position. So what it's going to do is at idle, I can run on primary only. And I have the ability to change the duty cycle of the solenoid, which I do have right here, and I'm not going to grab it. Don't worry about that. But I have the ability to change duty cycle, and essentially I'm going to time how quickly air passes through because it's going to be based on airflow, right? But if the engine's pulling more vacuum, it's going to close and open faster, right? I'm sorry, it should be less vacuum, but you get the point. I can change the speed in which the primaries to secondary staging is opening on the intake manifold. This is reusing something that's from Mazda and from Honda in this case for a vacuum solenoid reservoir. So that's all sorted out. Cody and I have been kind of thinking of a few different ways of doing that, and him along with Nick of Mtron been incredibly helpful. Nick pretty much taught me how to use Mtron. I'm gonna just put it that way. You know, he's the dude is brilliant. The way that he can think up logic strategies for an EC that's open ended. And I say that because it's truly open-ended. Um, so the intake manifold, semi-PP, the motor is going to be a half bridge because it's a Series 5 block, right? It's going to flow a little bit less than an REW inherently. Roy, I know you're yelling and shaking your head right now. You're like, oh, 70 horsepower right there, man. You're not Australian, but whatever. That's the voice I felt for you. So 70 horsepower is your estimate at that power level. Difference of REW versus 13BT. Going with the half bridge and having it controlled is actually going to make what I think more area under the curve, which PK in Australia did kind of test this already. And he did prove exactly what I thought would happen. When you close off the flapper, you're cramming essentially your boosted 90 degree or 90 millimeter throttle body into a position that's now just the primary runners. And so velocity will spike upward as a result. So that's going to be the part with John, Steve, and Chip. So I have a very custom semi-PP setup. Phil and I are working on that. The part should be here next week to make it all work. But, I'll allude to that later. The semi-PP is special. The motor has a lot of firsts in it. So that's going to be gone together in probably the end of the month. And then it's probably going to take a week or so to get out here. I'll get that installed. By that time, the car should be back here, of course, so I can install it. I'm going to have another fabricator most likely do the chassis stuff because, again, we all work in our comfort zones and how we do our stuff. You don't want to have me on Holly, right? I don't work on Holly EC very much unless it's like a 12A, which I'm like, okay, make it work. But we all run in our comfort zones, and for Phil, he was like, I want to do your exhaust stuff. I'm done. After that, nah, not me. And I have to fully respect that. I've tried enticing him. It doesn't work. So, motor, electrical, exhaust stuff. I'm sure you guys have seen the exhaust stuff by now. I'll do a very nice formal video with like a 4K camera and like just go through the car and show you guys what's been happening. I've got the seat heaters and the seat coolers out of the Lexus I or RS seats, whatever they were. RC, that's what it was. So I'll take those coolers and heaters out. I'm going to eventually put them into the new seats when I go to upholster them. I've already got the upholstery kit, so not a big deal. As far as the build goes, doing a few hardline things and electric water pump, the CWA 400 water pump, not Davies Craig. I hate the Davies Craig. I think the controller's junk. I think that the pump itself is a little bit weak. So on a build that I'm trying to do, Grand Touring, high speed, Pikes Peak, Silver State Classic, there's one in Texas very similar. All of those contribute to me wanting way more water pump. And originally, a lot of you know that I was a proponent saying I want to have high pressure stuff because when you raise the when you raise the pressure, you raise the boiling point of the fluid inside. Same goes for fuel, same goes for everything else. That's why, one of the reasons why ATF for transmissions has high pressure, because even though you want it as a shift pressure thing, it's also to help not boil that fluid or cavitate that fluid. So we'll go electric water pump. I'm most likely going to have built Apex. I'm going to call later tomorrow and see if he can just do a block off plate on the factory setup for now. I've got a very special setup coming out later with a few buddies of mine, but this is the temporary fix. So that's going to be water pump setup. My buddy Sean hit me up with the DXF file, which was incredibly gracious. The dude is beyond humble for his experience, and he's a brilliant engineer. So Sean, sent a DXF file that holds essentially the water pump on a small, simple little bracket, and it's all rubber diaphragm, and then you run a plate. I'm going to riv nut to the frame rail on the passenger side. It'll get the hoses right where they need to go. It'll look really nice. So you guys know that I take my time in the planning. I make sure it always works to a point of I'll do something and you know it's going to be planned. So, like when I had Phil lay stuff out, before I bought any parts, I was like, okay, take this measurement, take this measurement, take this measurement. I'll just go. I've got, not even joking, I've got like 11 mufflers lying around. For at one point in the Civic, or back when it was the Integra, I would go through mufflers like once every 3 months, 6 months, whatever, to find a sound profile that really attenuated or brought out like an audiophile characteristic that I liked. So I have all these mufflers lying around, which is the weirdest thing. But I use them for mock-up. Okay, I'm going to go, 16 inches here. I'm going to go 12 inches bullet here. I'm going to go, 17 inch here, overall length. And so you guys, I'm sure you've seen those pictures. Hope you like those things. Those took a ton of planning. An oval 4-inch from Vibrant that was hand cut with compound angles on a straight piece. A lot of you are going to say, why didn't you use pie cuts? Well, guess what? We bought pie cuts and they didn't fit. They didn't work. So it's better to get a compound angle. So let's say compound meaning that you're changing the angle both x-axis and y-axis, as you're doing the cut. So we're gaining certain angles at the same time. Phil was able to maneuver that and make an incredibly intricate, beautiful, artistic exhaust, taking the design stuff that I had planned and working upon it to a higher level. Just mind-blowingly good. So at this point, I've rambled for 17 minutes, and you're probably wondering, what in the world is he going on about, and why is he making this video? Okay. Right Brain Design, it's time to elevate you. You ready? So I'm going to be moving us on to an educational basis. I have a forum that I've put on the website. I have blog stuff I'm going to start doing. I'm sponsoring most likely 4 or 5 cars this year. In a scenario where the world is going to shit, you can either trudge through the mud or you can fucking hit it head on like I am. So I am in the mindset of saying, I'm going to take the risk now. I'm going to invest in myself and others that I believe in. And I think that as a community, as a group, whatever you want to call it, we're going to push through essentially that's hard not to say on YouTube. We're going to push through the shit that's just not acceptable in our current world. So I know a few of you are very good at YouTube type stuff. A lot of content creators. If you end up needing your car sponsored, reach out. If we meet eye to eye on certain things, I will be more than willing to consider you. There's a really badass essay, first gen Rx7 essay that I'm doing. There's a incredibly badass second gen Rx7. That one's 20p based, and I won't even tell you what's in the first gen, but it's exotic. You'll like it. It's still rotary. It's very rotary. And, I'm going through stuff with like seeing all the transformation for ECU companies due to the chip shortages and stuff like that. So I'm seeing a little bit behind the scenes, a little bit, all in the muck. And I think that sponsoring cars for this year is a good choice. I think that there are certain cars, whether they're street car or like magazine show car or whatever it is, that deserve a little bit more recognition. And so I may not have the social media presence. I may not have whatever clout, some bullshit that people love chasing these days. And I don't buy any views. I don't pay for any of that stuff. I don't do advertising because I just work hard. So I haven't made a YouTube video in ages. We did 9 cars in the last week. And the week before that, it was like 9 cars. And then it was Deals Gap before that, which was me working the whole time I was supposed to be on vacation. But it was really fun. And I love what I do. And I want to see both myself and others grow. So I don't see reason to take my foot off the gas. I'm going for it. If the world is in a risky position, so be it. I need to go headstrong and make sure that you guys are all taken care of. I'm still covering all the support as best I can. It seems like the more that I grow, I'm having probably about 150 conversations a day on average, which is getting a little bit tedious because I'll do 6 to 7 days a week, 10 to 13-hour days. So that's just part of being a self-employed business owner. And I understand this, and I hope that you guys can understand. Sometimes I can't always get back to you on the proper answer, but I want to teach you how to teach yourself. And that's a thing that Right Brain Design is going to start doing as far as a business, company, nonprofit, whatever I end up doing at the final stages of this stuff, to where I want to teach you how to think. That's what college is supposed to do. That's what school is supposed to do. They fall short. And there's a lot of things that I can sit down and say, you asked me a question. Where did you search before you asked me that question? I need to see effort. I'm not spoon feeding anyone. I'm tired of that shit. You're better than that. And when it comes to the way that we're approaching all of our future endeavors together, I want this to be what I do currently, which is I'm going to tune a car to the best of my ability at the given time. I'm going to upkeep those cars. Like once a month, I'm like, hey, did you send me a log for this? Let's see if your fuel system's good. Let's check your spark plugs. Let's take a look at what's going on. And I'm finding this sort of upkeep is what is the value that I bring to the industry. I'm not the cheap guy. I don't intend to be. But I'm going to be the guy who's helping you every step of the way for every single question you have for your car to make you feel that you are a competent owner for an exotic car, because that's what these are. These are exotic cars. So I've now rambled on for almost 23 minutes and kind of covered the whole point of the build, the update, sponsoring cars, the future of Right Brain Design. And yeah, I just really think that you guys keep your head up with this whole depression we're going into. This is something that I actually had one of my clients, we were talking for about an hour and a half about this sort of stuff, and he really wants me to start taking a break for finding better balance in life. And I completely understand where he's coming from. The introspective or in-depth personal understanding that I gained from that conversation is he's right. But I need to do it in my own way. So I'm going to try and make more things happen for everyone. What I'm doing is learning to optimize my time. So that's where you're going to see a little bit of change. You might not even see it. And that's actually intended. But I think that as a whole, we're really starting to combine a lot of great minds in the rotary industry, a lot of great minds in the automotive industry overall. Like I had help from Formula Drift drivers. I had help from electrical specialists, fabrication specialists, machining specialists, engineers from around the world, whether it's chassis or aerospace or anything else. So I'm trying to connect the dots for you guys and make sure that you're not running into the same mistakes that a lot of us do. Um, so I try to base an opinion on factual information. So one of the shops I work with, Rotor Piston Motorsport, we've spent about a year, maybe a year and a half at this point, going through and pretty much R&Ding part to part to part to part to part. And I'm testing with them. I mean, we've got like 100 runs on the dyno for like an average setup now, because we're trying to experiment to a point of saying, what is the failure point of this part? Where is the maximum limit of this part? And I want to optimize your setups to where if someone's like, hey, I've got $5,000, how can I distribute this in the most efficient way? I go through and I say, these coils are fine with this ECU. There you go. There's two things: factory, good ECU, done. Fuel system, you can cheap out here and you can handle this here, but you have to run a good filter. So there's certain things to where all of these will come together. And when you make kits like this for people and you make it understandable, it's going to be long-term beneficial, because they're seeing where they're not cutting corners, but where they're making it fit their needs. That's the thing. No reason to overspend or overdo something that's not benefiting your overall build. Prime example, there's an engine builder about 3 months ago that wanted to take on a project from a guy. Very young kid, very bright, works his butt off. The engine builder's like, you need to take this down, you do engine balancing and do the studding, doing this. The kid wanted 350 horsepower. That's totally not reasonable. The balancer he suggested is the same one that I don't like. And I'm like, look, man, here, this doesn't work. Let me show you why. And I have group chat videos and group chat photos. And I'm like, here are your example products from so-and-so. Don't waste your time. Run it stock, 7,800 RPM, road course car, spend the money on a good ECU, a good turbo, and be done. And of course, fuel system, but nothing like a crazy exotic build. Put a street port on it, throw some boost at it, run a little bit of water meth. You'll be fine. But your money is way better spent on a quality V-mount for air temps, which help for detonation resistance, versus some jackass doing rotary balancing that's not consistent, or the machining is gummy, or whatever it is to the quality control that this engine builder was suggesting. So I'm trying to make it to where you're getting a one-stop shop, maybe not through me, but to the point of the engine builder is informed because we've talked. The tuner is informed because we've talked. It doesn't even have to be me. That's my point. They understand the fuel system for their specifics of the car will match what your needs are, not what they've got on the shelf. That just doesn't make sense. And the whole overall guide for setting up a car is not like shooting blind. I want it to be, imagine on a website, drop down, drop down, drop down, drop down, drop down, because of your needs. You have a stage, blah, blah, blah. I can make a stage, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. But know this. I'm putting in the effort. We're going to get through whatever bullshit we're in. And for 30 minutes of rambling, not too bad of an error for a long, long talk. But I love this one-take stuff. This is the best. Invest in modern turbos. Get your thrust curve for your transmission efficiency planned out. Get your engineering buddies in line. Plan a cool car stuff. And don't forget to have fun, because this stuff is all about fun. And I'm off to go get drunk and enjoy myself, which is the life balance that I needed. So check in with you guys soon. I've got 3 cars for tomorrow. They'll be taken care of. And this is it for now. RGHTBrainDesign. I'm out of here.